The flight deck fell silent as the Admiral shouted for her to leave. But just as she turned to go, the missile bay lit up, and her code was the only one that worked. Every officer froze. Every sailor stared. And the Admiral? He didn't say another word. Commander Samira Alvi stepped onto the USS Valor's flight deck with a calm determination that concealed the storm she carried inside. Every eye followed her, not out of admiration, but suspicion. Her hijab, neatly tucked beneath her officer's cap, became a symbol of difference instead of duty. Some whispered, others scoffed. The Admiral barely acknowledged her, treating her presence as a formality, not a necessity. She had graduated top of her class in missile systems engineering, but no amount of brilliance seemed to erase the assumptions made about her. That morning, she was assigned to oversee a critical missile launch drill, a task she had helped design. Still, the crew looked past her, as if she was just holding the spot for someone else more fitting. As she ran final checks, the Admiral approached, his tone sharp. "We won't be needing you for this drill," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. A few snickered behind her back. Samira locked eyes with the man and gave a slow, respectful nod. She said nothing, not out of fear, but because she understood that sometimes silence speaks louder than outrage. She placed the launch code tablet gently on the console, then stepped aside. The drill hadn't even begun, and yet the message was clear. She wasn't welcome. But deep down, she knew the system in and out. She knew that this very drill couldn't proceed without her code. And so, she waited, quiet, composed. A storm hidden beneath a uniform no one thought she deserved to wear. But the truth? The moment they locked her out was the moment they handed her the key to everything that would follow. As the countdown to the missile drill began, tension buzzed across the flight deck. Admiral Kessler barked orders, eager to impress a visiting NATO delegation watching from the bridge. Crew members scrambled, systems flickered to life, and officers entered their credentials into the launch panel. But then, everything stopped. The system displayed a blinking red prompt. Authorization incomplete. Awaiting primary code. The Admiral frowned. "Try again," he snapped. Officers re-entered their codes twice, then 3 times. Nothing changed. The launch console refused to progress. Someone murmured, "Wasn't Commander Alvi the one who configured this system?" Admiral Kessler's jaw tightened. "Don't be ridiculous," he muttered. But deep down, he knew. The system had been redesigned 6 months ago. By her. At the back of the deck, Samira stood still. She hadn't moved since being dismissed. Eyes slowly turned toward her. The whispering returned, but it was different now. Shaky, uncertain. "She's the primary engineer," one young officer said aloud. "Her codes the master override." Kessler's pride flared. "Get her off the deck," he growled. But no one moved, not even the security detail. All eyes were locked on Samira, who quietly stepped forward, her boots echoing against the metal. She didn't gloat. She didn't smirk. She simply walked to the console, placed her finger on the biometric scanner, and entered her code. The console turned green. Launch simulation resumed. Silence fell over the deck. Samira turned and walked back to her spot without a word. But in that moment, no one saw her as just a token officer or a woman in a hijab. They saw her as the one person who understood the system better than anyone on that ship. And for the first time, they looked at her not with suspicion, but with awe. For the rest of the drill, no one dared speak to Samira. Not out of disrespect, but because they didn't know how. How do you face someone you've all silently doubted, mocked, even only to realize she held the key to the ship's most classified system? Admiral Kessler paced the command platform, rattled. He couldn't erase what had just happened. The look on the NATO delegate's face, part impressed, part stunned, haunted him. His grand moment had been hijacked not by defiance, but by quiet competence. When the drill ended and the deck lights dimmed to standby, Samira didn't celebrate. She returned to her workstation, adjusted a few schematics, and logged off like it was just another Tuesday.
No pride. No retaliation.
Just professionalism. But something shifted in the air. As she walked down the narrow hall toward the officers' quarters, a junior lieutenant, barely 20, stepped aside and whispered, "Ma'am." It wasn't much, but it wasn't nothing. Then came another, a nod, a glance of respect, a silence that didn't feel cold this time. At the mess hall later that evening, Samira sat alone with her tray like always. But one by one, members of the crew took nearby seats. Not with words, but with presence. In the military, where ego often speaks louder than facts, this was how apologies were made. Even Kessler appeared at the door for a moment. He didn't sit, didn't speak. He only watched her from afar, as if seeing her for the very first time. He knew what the patch on her collar really meant now. And he knew that by ordering her off that deck, he hadn't just misjudged an officer. He'd nearly compromised the operation. Respect was no longer optional. It had been earned silently, irrevocably. The next morning, the USS Reagan prepared for another high-level simulation, this time one involving live satellite tracking and classified missile protocols. Everything about the drill was designed to pressure test the chain of command. Admiral Kessler stood at the head of the command room, his tone sharper, more precise than usual. But beneath his firm voice, there was a tension he couldn't hide. Samira stood in the corner, silent, hands behind her back, eyes forward. The same woman he had once dismissed now held clearance for the final verification code. Only one among hundreds. The drill began. Coordinates were input. Target dummies locked. Systems engaged. Authorization level Delta. The technician called out. Final code required. Kessler hesitated for just a second. Then his voice lowered. "Lieutenant Commander Samira, enter your code." The room held its breath. She stepped forward, pressed her thumb to the panel, and entered a string of characters. A red bar flashed, then turned green. Code accepted. Instantly, the warhead system armed for simulated launch. Every eye turned toward Samira. Not in shock this time, but in awe. Not even the Admiral moved. For all his medals, speeches, and traditions, he was now standing next to the only person who could unlock the Navy's most secure platform. No one needed a lecture. No orders. The silence said it all. Later, as the crew dispersed, Samira walked past a row of officers. One by one, they stood.
No salute. No commands.
Just a moment of quiet respect for the woman they'd once questioned. On that day, the carrier didn't feel like a ship. It felt like a place where truth surfaced. And the truth was this: Samira had never needed to prove herself. The system, the ship, the mission had already done that for her.